You're listening to the weekly Dartscast, and now your co-hosts, one-time UK Open Riley's qualifier participant Alex Moss and the one-time VIP guest of Barry Hearn, Burton DeWitt. 180! Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast. I'm Alex Moss, and joining me as always, my co-host, darts statistician Burton DeWitt. How you doing?
Letting loose, like I said I would be, and that everyone else should be doing. How are you, Alex?
I'm good, thank you very much. Glad to hear that you're letting loose, and we're talking only a few minutes after the end of the last 16 of the PDC World Championship. Dave Chisnall holding off that comeback from Dimitri van der Berg, get the last spot in the quarterfinals. So the lineup is complete for Friday for the 2021 PDC World Championship, and we've got a day break now before the quarterfinals get underway on New Year's Day. Thought we'd bring a quick episode out for you guys to keep you busy and look back on what's been a dramatic 4 days since the tournament resumed after Christmas. We've got 8 players left standing now. Michael van Gerwen, the top seed, now odds-on favourite to win it for a fourth time. Survived the almighty scare against Joe Cullen in his last game. But is it a foregone conclusion now that he wins the title?
Well, as someone who has picked someone else to win the title, I can't say it's a foregone conclusion, because that would mean, one, I'm giving everyone else a 0% chance, and two, I'm changing my pick, and I'm not yet ready to change my pick. Some of us, can't speak for all of us, but some of us still have our pre-tournament champion in the field as we reach 2021 and we reach that quarterfinals on New Year's Day. Others of us might not, but I do, and that's not Michael van Gerwen. That was and is Gerwyn Price. I'm not changing it quite yet. Van Gerwen, though, he dodged a bullet, and it is going to be tough to see someone be able to beat him, because Joe Cullen didn't really do much wrong in that match. Take the last leg aside, he disappeared. But you can forgive him for disappearing because of how high a standard he played at for 6 4/5 of a set. And to do it while, for the most part, Michael van Gerwen was throwing it right back at him is a testament to what Joe Cullen brought and the amount of scare he put into Van Gerwen. And even still, Van Gerwen got over the line. Yes, Van Gerwen made a few mistakes, but so did Joe Cullen. Joe Cullen could have won the match 4-0 because the one set he lost in the first 4, he had a couple of set darts at. So he could have won this match 4-0, but at the same time, Van Gerwen could have easily been 3-1 up after 4 sets, maybe even won all 4 if darts hit other side of the wire. Van Gerwen dodged that bullet, but he's dodged bullets before and gone out. He's also dodged bullets like against Gary Anderson in a similar situation in a similar round 6 years ago and gone on to win the title. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, but it's going to take a massive effort to beat him. And even that, like Joe Cullen showed, might not be enough. But he has almost certainly going to be playing, if he wins each of the next 2 rounds, 3 consecutive matches against someone who can do it. Dave Chisnall in the quarterfinals has had a lot of bad form against Van Gerwen, but so did Peter Wright before the World Championship final last year. Maybe this is Chizzy's time, and he looks every bit the part so far. And then against either Gary Anderson, who's only gone and beat Van Gerwen in a semifinal before, or Dirk van Dijvenbode, who's been one of the players of the year, even though he's unseeded. And then in the final against whoever he goes against, most likely Gerwyn Price. Those are going to be 3 matches against someone who has every chance to beat him and to be able to maintain the level over 9, 11, or 13 sets to do it. It is anything but a foregone conclusion. He is the favorite. He should be the favorite. You could even say he should be the odds-on favorite based on how well he's played over his first 3 matches, but it's not a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, some good points you make there. And I was going to say it'd be so 2020 if Dave Chisnall would end that long run that he's had of bad luck against Michael van Gerwen, beats him in the quarterfinals, and then goes all the way and wins the World Championship. But of course, when this tournament resumes and finishes at the weekend, we will be in 2021. So maybe we can continue that form into another year. But yeah, just echoing what you're saying, Michael van Gerwen has turned up to this tournament arguably his best form of the year. And we talked about it on this show before about that run that he had during the summer going into the autumn where he was losing in tournaments. He wasn't getting to finals. He wasn't competing in the back end of these big TV tournaments. We're seeing new players come through and win these big events, but he won that tournament just before Ali Pali, and he's just carried on that momentum, carried on that confidence from there. And the 3 games that he's played so far, 108 average, 106, and then the 100 average against Joe Cullen, the 3 players that he's played there have all put in top performances against him. They have pushed him. The results might not look that way in all 3 of them, maybe the Ryan Murray game 3-1, Ricky Evans 4-0, but certainly the Joe Cullen game 4-3, going to that sudden death leg, the final leg in the final set, and to come back from 3-1 down, survive those two match starts, Joe Cullen having two goes at the ball to win it, once 4-2 and once 4-3. Sometimes you look back on tournaments and you think that was the chance to get rid of the top seed, get rid of the tournament favourite. Even going back to last year's World Championship, you mentioned Peter Wright ending that run of bad luck against Michael van Gerwen. He had that bit of luck in his first game against Noel Malignum. He dodged that match start and produced that unbelievable run of the 162, the 140 to save himself in that game. So maybe that was his chance to go out Michael van Gerwen. Who knows? He's even said it in his interviews. He's not quite been as bullish as he has been in previous years. He said he's not won anything yet. There's still a way to go. And we've seen that this year. Some tournaments he's gone deep, like the Grand Slam semi-finals. And we think this is his time to shine again. And he's gone out. So it is going to take a big performance. There are players in there that are capable. But I think the bookies have got it right based on what we have seen. It's going to take a big effort, and effort even bigger than what Joe Cullen produced the other day.
Now, an intriguing quarterfinal lineup. Two former champions of this very event, one former champion in the BDO version, and three other players who've only won majors. That's not to mention, someone like Dave Chisholm, who's only a world finalist, but doesn't meet those six first categories we got through. But whose run has surprised you the most?
We look at it, don't we? We've only got three of the top 8 seeds left in it. So we've seen a lot of the big names go out, the likes of Peter Wright, James Wade, Rob Cross, Michael Smith. Some of them you'd have expected to be battling in these final 3 days of the tournament, some maybe not based on their form this year. There's a few players that have surprised us, you've got to say, going into the tournament. Yes, they've got pedigree. You mentioned there former BDO World Champion Stephen Bunting, when he came through in the PDC, had an unbelievable first year, and since then he's had a few glimpses where we've seen him get to a quarterfinal or go on a deep run. But as far as this World Championship, this is his first big run in a long time. I think 6 years since that debut, getting to the quarterfinals, and 250 to 1 before the tournament as well. So if you're going off the odds from the bookmakers, he's the biggest pre-tournament price by a long way. There's a few others in there, Dirk van Dijvenbode, but you look at the form that he's shown this year and look at the section of the draw that he was in. A lot of people fancied him to get through his first game and then beat Rob Cross, so kind of ruling him out. Of course, you've got to rule out the likes of Michael van Gerwen and Gerwyn Price. They were the two pre-tournament favourites coming into this, but I think Stephen Bunting probably leads the way. Going beyond that, got to give a mention to the next player who had the biggest odds who's still in the tournament, and that is, of course, the man we like to call the handicapper's nightmare, Daryl Gurney, 80 to 1 before the start of the tournament. I know his fellow countryman Mickey Mansell was disappointed that the Sky graphics weren't showing him on the list of the top 10. I think they show the top 10 in the odds, but he's in there, I think, at the moment. He's definitely going to be in there now because we've only got 8 players left. He didn't show much form over the last few months, so I did predict him to survive in the Premier League after that long layoff, and he did. He got through Judgment Night, had a few scalps along the way, but since then he's had a lot of early exits. European Championship, World Cup, Players Championship finals, the Grand Slam. He didn't even qualify for that, so his run of form coming into this has not been the best, but he's turned up with somewhere near his top game. He's produced a lot of great performances so far, and against Gerwyn Price, he's had some good battles with him as well. He might fancy getting to that first World Championship semi-final.
Yeah, and you started exactly where I was going to start with Stephen Bunting, and it's hard not to start there because there wasn't really any signs that this was coming from him. And I think we mentioned on the show, he definitely had an uptick in form after the long break due to COVID. Even though he missed the World Match Play for the first time in his career, he did qualify for the World Grand Prix. And it's not often you see someone miss out on the World Match Play a year after being in both the Match Play and the Grand Prix, but still get into the World Grand Prix. And that tells you that Bunting was playing better as we got more into the year than he was at the beginning. But he had to miss the World Grand Prix anyway due to COVID. Didn't qualify for any of the other TV events except for the Players' Championship finals, where he went out in the first round to Ryan Murray. Now, granted, we've learned that Ryan Murray is a very capable player. If we didn't know that already, we saw it after he gave Federer not a mighty scare, but a bit of a scare, missing darts to get it to a fifth set. Who knows? Van Gerwen could have lost his first match to Ryan Murray. But that's really the only thing we've seen from Stephen Bunting in a very long time on the big stage. Even that was on the secondary stage. But he's played very, very well in this World Championships. And that's why he's into the quarterfinals. And he's had to do it under a lot of pressure. For a player who hasn't been playing all that well, especially in the big events, to be able to lift his game and get over the line in tight matches and 2 last leg deciders is a credit to where Bunting's head is compared to where it might have been not that long ago. I think his run is surprising, but it is deserved. Beyond that, I can't say that really surprised about any others. You mentioned Gurney, but there have been signs that Gurney was getting back, not to his best, but getting back at least into some form. He found his form right off the bat in this tournament, and credit to him. But he also had the most favorable draw, all things considered, especially after Nathan Aspinall went out, so he didn't have to go against him in the last 16. Gurney's had a more favorable draw, but I think what's surprising is that he has played as fantastic as he has. But I think really Bunting's the one real surprise. Everyone else, maybe Gary Anderson as well, because we didn't know what to expect from him. Everyone else, you might not have picked them, but you're not really surprised to see them there. And makes for a great quarterfinal lineup.
Support for the weekly Dartscast is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code ADONIS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code ADONIS. Your balls will thank you. Now, if you excuse me.
One of the big talking points for this World Championship, not just that there's been less fans than what we saw for the BDO World Championship at the start of the year because of being played behind closed doors, but it's been about the lack of the tiebreak. We knew going into this tournament that the tiebreak rule that we've had for years and years, where it goes 5-5 in the final set and then they throw for the ball if it goes that far, that was going to be scrapped for this year. If it goes 2-2 in the final set, the 5th leg is the final leg. You don't throw for the ball. And we've seen a lot of dramatic finishes to matches just going off what we've seen so far. Through the first 4 rounds, 14 of the games going to 2-2 in the last set and then going to that last leg, including 7 times in the last 4 days over the last couple of rounds. Could we see the tiebreak gone completely, or do you think it's still going to come back next year?
I think it's still going to come back, but it has worked. This format has worked a lot better than I thought it would. I didn't think that there would be less drama, and I think it makes sense that there'll be more drama because it is so difficult for a match to get to 5-5 in the final set. But even matches that go 4-2 or 5-3, that extra little bit of leeway for the player that loses the odd number leg to know that he still has or she still has a chance is good, and I like that for the players. But boy, this is really brought up in some matches the best. Look at Dirk van Dijvenbode, especially in that match against Rob Cross, the former champion of the world. But it's also, brought out the nerviest starts. Can't say the worst, but the nerviest starts from players. I mean, Joe Cullen looked beaten before that final leg even started, but he's not the only one. In some of the matches, it's just someone falling over the line, like it was in the Christoph Ratajski-Gabriel Clemens match. We wouldn't have had that, most likely, if we were in the old format. It might be painful in that case for both players. Christoph Ratajski's facial expressions, and not just facial expressions, full body expressions on the side of the camera while that was going on was a movie in and of itself. I was about to say a TV show in and of itself, but if that lasted so long, it was a movie in and of itself. And it was great to watch, even though it was in the moment we're feeling for both players. And it has worked really well. But I just think, I don't know if fairer is the better word, but for World Championships, that winning by 2 clear legs, I just really like it. It might not be as entertaining in most of the matches, because sometimes you'll just see it just 2 runaway legs and it seems anticlimactic as opposed to 1-leg shootout. But I think it's better for the World Championships with it. But boy, this has really worked as a one-off, and you can't criticize the decision. Even though I wanted to say even though originally I was going to say, you know what, once we got back from Christmas, from the 3rd round on, bring back the tiebreaker now that there's not going to be fans in any of the rounds. I'm glad they didn't. But I do want it to come back next year to the old format, even still.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I think like you and like a lot of darts fans, when the news first came out, we spoke about it on the show that the tiebreak was going to be scrapped for this year. There was a lot of uproar, a lot of people saying why they're doing that for. But as you say, it's turned out quite well. There's been a lot of exciting finishes, maybe some of them that we wouldn't have got go to that final leg, like the 11th leg. And I guess really it's accelerated that drama more quicker, if you like. So rather than going 5-all and getting those 6 extra legs to get to that sudden death leg, it's being brought forward more quickly. And I guess playing devil's advocate, really, this World Championship, it is one for the more casual follower of the game. So this time of the year, you see more celebrities, more football players, people on Twitter that you don't know watch the darts. They're watching the darts. And I guess if you want to attract more people, if they know that every single set is going to be first to 3 legs, you're not going to get it go that all way, because we're living in a kind of world now where people want things a little bit more instant, don't they? They're not going to sit there and watch a game for 2 hours or whatever, or however long that Gary Anderson, Mentor Suljovic game went on, because a lot of people obviously switched off and watched Coronation Street in the end. But yeah, a lot of people do want to get to that finish line a lot more quicker, don't they? So maybe we'll see it carry on next year. I don't know. I personally, like you, I'd like to see the tiebreak come back, because it is unique for this World Championship, where you go the 5-all and the sudden death leg. And there's been so many great moments in the past where we've seen that rule come in, and moments that we'll never forget. But we have seen some unbelievable moments this year. I mean, just looking at the last 4 days, for an example, you had Joe Cullen against Johnny Clayton, the 2 tops from Cullen to win it. You had Gabriel Clemens knock out the defending champion Peter Wright in a sudden death leg. You had the Going Price Brendan Dolan game go all the way to that final leg. As you mentioned, the Clemens Ratajski game going all the way, both players ending up on 1-1. The Van Gerwen Cullen game as well, where Cullen just fell short. And maybe that's one of the ways where we've seen it change a little bit, because Cullen missed that shot at the ball, and then a few seconds later he had to throw to kick things off in that sudden death. If it was the previous format where you have to win by 2 legs, he'd have had a little bit more leeway to maybe compose himself a little bit. So we've seen it maybe change things that we would have previously seen in other years, but we'll see for next year. But like you, I'm hoping that we get it back for next year.
Yeah, not to mention Cullen might not have just had as much nerves in that final leg if he knew that he was still 2 away. We'll have one more question before we get on to our picks for Friday's quarterfinals. News out today as of when we're recording, which is on Wednesday. So if you're listening, probably yesterday by the time you're listening. But the PDC announced that 2021 Q School has been pushed back 3 weeks for obvious reasons, from the middle of January to early February. Now, I believe the Masters is still set to take place now before Q School. What do you see happening, though, darts-wise, for the first quarter of 2021?
I think it's going to be a quiet first quarter, and I think a few people were expecting the Q School to get pushed back a little bit because of, as the PDC have said, because of the restrictions that we've got here in the UK and across Europe as well. And it's a big event, and they've already said in that announcement that in the original announcement, they said if they get big numbers, they're going to have to split the first stage into 2 separate blocks. So half the players will play in the first 3 days, the other half players will play the second 3 days. And that is what's going to happen, because they've had so many entries, which we kind of expected, really, didn't we? Because at the minute, the PDC are the ones that are leading the way and getting all these events on. But going forward, what are we going to see? It's going to be difficult, really, to see how much darts we're going to see. As you say, the Masters, ITV, the last event they had, the Players' Championship Finals, they said the Masters 29th to the 31st of January, Milton Keynes. We're expecting it to be behind closed doors. That is an event that you can put on, because it is the top 16 on the order of merit. You're not going to get any new tour card holders get into that event. So that is an event that we probably will still see. That's one that you can get out there in the first few months of the year. But aside from that, really, for the PDC, they've got to get the Q School on next, because they need to get back up to the 128 tour card holders. You've got the players that are dropping off, and you've got tour cards that are up for grabs. So until we can get Q School done, get those tour cards handed out, we're not going to see any ranking events. So I kind of feel a little bit for the PDC at the moment, because they've done so much in the last 9 or 10 months to get everything going again, and they're not stopping. They want to carry on. They want to get things going as much as they can, get Q School going. And that's the next hurdle for them, really, is get that on. And then they can start getting the ranking events on, your Players' Championships. And when things start to ease up, which we're hoping for later on in 2021, you can get more events on with the crowds as well. But until you get Q School on, it's going to be difficult to see things going again. Aside from that, The WDF and MAD, I'm sure we'll talk about them in the next few weeks when things quieten down after this World Championship. But you've had a few announcements from them recently as well. The World Masters announcement for December next year, they're hoping to get that on for the first time. The WDF, MAD with the titles, the belts that they've got going on and things like that. So we're kind of really looking towards the second half of 2021 for them as well, I think. But if they can get things going quicker, then I'm sure they'll do so as well.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you. And maybe you could still do home tours and stuff like that, even for the players who've fallen off, or maybe for players who've fallen off and those who had done well enough of the challenge tour that they're automatically going to the second stage, doing some home tour events for them, give them some exposure. But beyond that, as you said, what can you do until you have those 128 tour cards? There's really not much. The one thing I see theoretically possibly could be done is moving the World Series events that are scheduled for August in Australia and New Zealand and moving those up to February or March, where COVID is currently under control. Now, the thing is, the players are going to have to, who are participating, if they're willing to participate, well, they're going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks upon arrival in Australia or New Zealand, whichever one goes first. And obviously it would also involve governmental approvals from those governments. But that might be a thing that you can do, and also a thing that will get darts in front of crowds, because in Australia and New Zealand, at least in most states right now, you can have a crowd. We'll see whether New South Wales gets their current outbreak under control. It looks like they are. But assuming they are, you'll be able to have a crowd and possibly even 75 or 80% capacity. And that might just be a way to fix some of the fixture congestion that will eventually catch up with everyone as the season gets under gear. But beyond that, I really don't see what you can do. If Q School goes ahead in early February, then you can get those Players' Championship events going that month. But even still, you need to provide some leeway for the players to travel and to make sure they're able to figure out their travel accommodations more so than in a normal year because of just everything going on. So I don't know what we'll see in that first quarter, but I'm sure they're looking at all options. They obviously didn't listen to my idea to move the World Championships to Australia, but maybe they'll listen to my idea to move the World Series events up a few months or half a year in the calendar, because maybe that's just what makes the most sense this time.
Watch this space, and we should hopefully hear something. We didn't mention it, either of us. The Premier League due to start in early February. We're expecting, we usually have the announcement on the players after the World Championship final, which is this Sunday, so I'm assuming we'll get some sort of update on that this week as well to chat about. But before we go, let's get into some picks, shall we? Of course, with our friends over at Low Six who present this show, we're hoping to put on a contest for Friday for the quarterfinals, the 4 quarterfinals that we've got lined up over the 2 sessions at Ali Pally. We'll be making our picks in a moment, but before we do, we of course made our picks on last week's show for the first few games after the Christmas break, and a high scoring draw between me and you, 4-4 in the end. A few other people doing a lot better than us on the app, and congratulations to D000J, Sean Russ 116, James _Glonick and Will Gray 89. They all got 6 out of 6 on that contest, shared the £100 jackpot with Low Six, so congratulations to all of those. Let's get into our picks then. Who do we think is going to make it into Saturday's semi-finals? And we'll go in order of play that's been announced as well. First game up, Krzysztof Ratajski against Stephen Bunting. How do you see the first game going?
It's the least sexy on paper of the 4 matches, but in many ways it might be the most sexy of the 4. You have Krzysztof Ratajski finally getting his major breakthrough in the PDC at least. He is, a former world master, but so is Stephen Bunting. But getting through to the quarterfinals, he also made the quarterfinals of the World Match Play. But this is the World Championships. But he had to dodge a bullet to get here. And he'll have to dodge literally the bullet if he's going to make the semifinal. And I just don't know if he will. Ratajski, unlike Bunting, has showed a bunch of nerves in that match against Gabriel Clemens. Bunting, Searle came back at him, but that was Searle lifting his game. And Bunting, not necessarily playing poorly, but just getting a little bit unlucky. Darts hitting the wrong side of the wire that were well thrown. But he got over the line. He came through what he needed to. Ratajski, he lucked into it at the end where both players couldn't hit double one. And maybe Bunting just has that little bit more confidence and a little less pressure, it seems, on him. He's playing freely. I think that's going to be enough. I think this is going to be Bunting's first PDC World Championship semifinal, and his first semifinal in a PDC major since he got whitewashed in the UK Open right after that quarterfinal in the World Championship 6 years ago. I'm going to go Bunting to win it 5-3.
Well, this is going to be our first disagreement on the picks then, because I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go with Krzysztof Ratajski to keep this run going, the first Polish player to make the quarterfinals of the PDC World Championship. And he's a player that we've spoken about on this show for a long time, probably even before he won that World Masters title a few years ago now. But we've said the next step for him is to have that big run on TV. He's currently having it. This is some of the best that we've seen from him on TV as far as the big events go, the World Championships, World Match Plays and tournaments like that. And he has had a little bit of luck along the way. Gabriel Clemens missing the match starts in that sudden death leg. Stephen Bunting as well. He's overcome a few games where it's gone to the wire. The Ryan Searle game, the Andy Bolton game as well went to a final set, and the James Wade game as well, 2 sets down, coming back to win that 1-4-2. So both of these players have come through some adversity so far. It's the first game up, I think, out of the 4. If you're going to back one of the games to go 9 sets or go 8 sets or go the furthest, this is probably the one that you're going to go for. So I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go with Krzysztof Ratajski to make it through to the semi-finals. And then closing out the afternoon session, we've got Gary Anderson against Dirk van Dijvenbode. How do you see this one going?
I think there's only one way you can go in this one, and it's with the unseeded player. Dirk van Dijvenbode has been the better player each round, I would say, than Gary Anderson. Obviously in the obviously in the first round, since Gary Anderson had a bye, but also obviously in the third round when Dirk van Dijvenbode whitewashed Adam Hunt in one of the real beatdowns of this tournament, averaging 104. But I think arguably he did in the second round against Rob Cross because of the pressure he was under in that match. And then in the fourth round against Glenn Durrant for similar reasons. And he was averaging over 100 when he was 2 sets down in that match, while Durrant was averaging under 90. And it was just Durrant hitting at the right times and Dirk missing some key darts at the wrong times. But that's the first time we've seen that from Dirk van Dijvenbode. There's nothing to make me think that match against Glenn Durrant was anything but his weakest, despite playing really, really well. I expect he's going to rebound from that, and I think Gary Anderson might just regress a little bit from a match that he got a bit fortunate. Devin Peterson sets 3 and 4 going 2 legs up and losing both those sets. I think Dirk van Dijvenbode is playing better than Gary Anderson right now. I think right now he's the better player than Gary Anderson. The one thing Gary Anderson has is experience and freedom, because he's not going to feel that he needs to do this. He's just going to go out and play. But I think that's still not going to be enough. I'm going to go Dirk van Dijvenbode to win 5-2.
I'm going to go the other way, but I can easily, like you, I can easily see Dirk van Dijvenbode continuing this best run that he's had in the World Championship and going one step further to a semi-final. But I'm going to go the other way, and I think we did picks on the World Grand Prix quarterfinals, which is where these two met only a few months ago, and I'm pretty sure that I went with Gary Anderson on that occasion. Dirk van Dijvenbode won 3-1 and made it all the way to the final. He's a player that, you look at the players that he's beaten on TV this year, he's picked up a lot of scalps. I know there's a lot of people that are talking about him as Premier League potential for 2021. I know he's not thinking about that at the moment. All his focus is on this tournament, as it should be, because it's the biggest one that they play in. Gary Anderson, on the other side of things, he's made a lot of headlines this week. At the game against Mensur Suljovic, Tablegate, he had a day off after that, came back for today when we were recording and did a number on Devin Peterson. I didn't expect that one to be a 4-0 either way, but won it 4-0 into the quarterfinals again. And he said in his interview afterwards, his tail's up a little bit. He's heard some of the comments that Wayne Mardle and Rod Harrington were saying on the Sky broadcast after that game with Mensur about how upset he was with how everything played out. But he's fired up, and I think a fired up Gary Anderson is a very dangerous Gary Anderson. So I'll go the other way. I'll go with Gary to keep the run going, get to the semi-finals. And then we move into the evening session. The two favourites for this competition still in. First up, we're going to be talking about Gerwyn Price, who is your tip to win the tournament. He's up against Daryl Gurney. How do you see this one going?
I'm not backing away from my tip to win the tournament. Compared to what we just said earlier, or what I just said earlier, that Dirk van Dijvenbode has been the better player than Gary Anderson in this tournament. In this situation down here, I think you have to say Daryl Gurney's been the better player than Gerwyn Price, but it is fairly close between them. But Gerwyn Price has lifted his game when he needed to. Obviously, in that last leg against Brendan Dolan, in what is one of the matches of the tournament, if not the match of the tournament. And there's a lot of matches you can say that, but that Gerwyn Price Brendan Dolan match, the averages don't do it justice because they were both over 100 into the final set. And okay, they regressed a little bit in the final set, which is why they both finished under 100, but it was still just as dramatic. And they both were playing at the same level as one another. But Gerwin Price were both on 72, took it out, last dart in hand to win that match. That was the time that someone could have beaten him, but he got over the line. He had all the right shots at the right time against Mervyn King, and did it in a match where he averaged under 98, but still was winning legs in 15 each time he won a leg. That's what he has to do. He's going to hit at the right time, and Gurney is going to have to play out of his skin for the fourth match in a row. He can. He's won 2 majors, but I don't think he will. This is Gerwin Price's time, and Gerwin Price is going to get this match done 5-3.
Yeah, I mean, before the start of the tournament, like you, I predicted Gerwin Price to get to the final, so I'm going to stick with my pre-tournament pick that has done pretty well so far and predict him to get to the final. So that does mean I've got him going over the handicapper's nightmare, but we should give a mention to Daryl Gurney because he's had a brilliant tournament, and he's all 3 of those games he's performed in really well. Could he cause an upset, if you like, in terms of the betting, in terms of the rankings? Yes, I think he could, and I think both these players will be looking at this as a huge opportunity to get to a World Championship final, because if you offered them Christopher Ratajski or Stephen Bunting on paper going into the tournament, they'd have fancied their chances of getting over that one as well. So it's a big opportunity for both players to get to a world final, and these world finals don't come around very often. You saw Peter Wright, it took him 6 years to get to another one. We see players get to one and never get to another one again. So both players, there's a lot riding on this one, maybe more for Gerwin Price because there is that added caveat that if he can go all the way and win the title, he will become the world number 1. So that's another thing to think about as well. But like you, we both backed Gerwin Price to come through this bottom section of the draw. So we've got to stick with it. We'll go with Gerwin Price. And then final game, it is the top seed, Michael van Gerwen against Dave Chisnell. How to see the quarterfinal going?
Well, you were saying to me in chat beforehand that I was going to have to make a new prediction, but I think you need to go back and listen to the episode where I made the prediction, because my prediction is still alive. It's not alive in full, but what I said was the winner of the Dimitri Vandenberg-Dave Chisnell match was going to go to the final, and that I thought it would be Dimitri Vandenberg. Well, my prediction remains the same. The winner of the Dimitri Vandenberg-Dave Chisnell match is going to go to the final, and that means I'm picking Dave Chisnell to beat Michael van Gerwen. There's been nothing so far this tournament that makes me feel confident that this prediction is still going to come through. And that's not meant as an insult to Dave Chisnell, who's gotten better each match, and he wasn't all that poor in the first match to begin with. But it's more compliment to how much Michael van Gerwen has lifted his game over what we've seen from him all year, because he looked unplayable in 2 matches and was pretty close to unplayable in another one and still had to survive 2-match darts in it somehow. But I made the prediction at the start of the tournament. I didn't say whether Chizzy would beat Van Gerwen or not. I said he could, but I also said the winner of Joe Cullen, Johnny Clayton, could knock out Van Gerwen. I didn't want to pick for sure which one. Well, now I'm going to have to make that pick for sure, and I'm not going to go against what I said on the show a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, which is the winner of Dave Chisnell, Dimitri Vandenberg, is going to the final. So I'm going Chizzy to win it in 9 sets in a last leg decider.
Oh my, that would be unbelievable scenes at Ali Pally. We shall see. Dave Chisnell, we don't have to go through the record books to tell you that his record against Michael van Gerwen is not good, and he's not beat him on TV in 7 years. I think it is 2013 World Grand Prix. Since then, they've played a lot of times on TV, a lot of finals, a lot of big events, and it has been the green man that's come out on top. But just before we started recording, I had a look at Dave Chisnell's quarterfinals in the PDC World Championship, and it's the story of his career, if you like, because his previous 2 quarterfinals that he's got to, 2017, played Gary Anderson. He averaged 104. Gary Anderson averaged 105. Dave Chisnell hit 21 180s, which at the time was a record for a match in the PDC World Championship. Gary Anderson would later on beat that with 22 in the final, and he ended up losing 5-3. So he's had a bit of bad luck in that one. A couple of years later, 2019, again, I think he averaged 96. Gary Anderson 103. 3-0 and 4-1 down, came back and lost it 5-2 in the end. But looking back, he needs to get off to a good start. It goes without saying, doesn't it? Because if you go 2 or 3 sets down against Michael van Gerwen, it is kind of game over. And we saw that with the Joe Cullen game. If you can keep with him, get the first set or stay with him, then you do have a chance, especially now that we don't have the tie break. And if you win the darts, if you win that bullseye before the start of it and it goes 4-all, you've got the darts. That's a big advantage, as we've seen with a lot of these deciders. So I can't go with Dave Chisnell because I've backed Michael van Gerwen as my second tournament tip after my first one went out very early on. So I will stick with a green man. But if Dave Chisnell comes through, fair play to him, and I think he would fully deserve to then go all the way and pick up the title. And guys, if you want to get involved, if you think our picks are any good or you want to go with your own picks, we should hopefully have a contest with our friends over at Low Six. So download the PDC Picks app, 18 plus, UK residents only, T&Cs apply. Please gamble responsibly, and begambleaware.org to find out more about that.
Yes, indeed. And I think this is the riskiest I've ever gone in the picks here, but I'm sticking with it. I'm feeling brave. But anything else for this week?
As always, got to say a big thank you to everyone for listening. Hope you've enjoyed our shows that we've put on during the World Championship. Happy New Year to everyone if you're listening to this after the 31st of December and on the start of the quarterfinals on New Year's Day. Thanks everyone for your support. This will be our last show of 2020. So thanks everyone who's followed us throughout the year. If you've got on board during the year, we really appreciate it. And we'll be back next week to look back at the last 3 days, talk about the new PDC World Champion, whoever that is out of those 8 players. We'll be back to talk about all that. And we'll also be looking ahead to our weekly Dartscast awards as well. If you saw it on Twitter, we're going to be doing awards over the next few weeks as well, looking back on the year as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. And you guys will be able to get involved, putting forward your nominations for the winners, and all the winners will be down to you. You'll be voting for who the winners are. We'll just put forward our suggestions as well. So looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, we only need one more Tablegate, and we can add an award for best Tablegate of the year. But we'll see. There's still 7 more matches to go for that. But yes, thank you to everyone over this past year, over these past 4 years now. It's hard to believe. But we'll be back, as Alex said, to recap the World Championship final 3 days. Weird to say not to look ahead to Lakeside or to the PDC World Championships. Unfortunately, this year, this is the one World Championships. But we will be back in just a few days to recap this, and then to have our award show shortly thereafter, and hopefully shortly thereafter to be talking about live darts again. I won't say hang tight quite yet because we still have 3 more days of Dartsmas, so you can still let loose. So let loose, but prepare to hang tight because there'll be some hanging tight to do fairly soon.